Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum. If you'd like to support the channel, then there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Slick James Johnson, Sammy, Ranty Flat Earth, Paul, Flatten Earth, and Chocolate Same. I think we've got Quantum Eraser, but he may have nipped off to get some food. But hello, one and all. Good to have you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we were in quite a heated debate about what is and isn't evidence between Ranty and Slick James Johnson, of all people. Bit of infighting. I'm more than happy to dispense with housekeeping, just so we can continue that conversation if you two are willing.
Nah, I'm more of the belief now that Slick's just a troll, so I'm not going to get involved with it. You guys carry on.
Okay, well, if you may, I'd like to carry on by myself for a second, if I may. So the point that I'm trying to make is that Ranty has done some observations, and he's claiming that they debunk the globe. But the same thing is that globe people do the same thing, like Tim Osmond. Tim Osmond has a bunch of observations that say debunk the flat earth. So it seems to me it's just a matter of what side you take. But the problem is taking sides doesn't mean anything. You can have 1 million people taking your side and it means absolutely nothing whatsoever. If you don't have any kind of real scientific evidence to back anything up, then you just have a bunch of sides making declarations. At the end of the day, it means zero.
Hey, 10th man, how you doing?
Well,
Good, Nathan.
Very good to have you.
Can you understand why Ranty would think that you're trolling? Because he's actually going out and trying to do something, and it seems like your argument is to just do.
How is he trolling? How is Slick? Define a troll.
Well, I would say a troll would be someone who's dishonest, someone who's not accurately saying things that they believe.
No, I don't think that's what a troll is. So you're using the term out of context. It's just an ad hominem. Slick has a view, right? Just a different view. I like his different views. I really do. And I think he's exactly right. So am I a troll then?
No, because I'm not saying, first of all, I wasn't trying to use it as an ad hom. I'm not saying he's wrong because, he's a troll. I'm not using that as my argument.
That's not
I'm just
an ad
saying
hom.
that.
That's not an ad hom. You need to go look up what troll is and then ad hom and then come back.
Okay. So anyways, I was just saying that what I gather from what Ranty is saying is that he's just going out and doing stuff to try to show or demonstrate that the earth is flat.
Yeah, I think that's yeoman work, and I don't have a problem with Ranty doing that. But I told Ranty a long time ago that it's just a sight gag, and Slick is right because they do the same things on the other side. Timmy's got photos, Sly's got photos. They do the same thing, right?
No one really cares, QE, what you think or whether you think that Slick's right.
I know that, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
Awesome. Well done.
So yeah, I was just thinking that it seems like, is that your stance, Ranty? Am I summarizing that correctly? You're trying to show people something, because there's a lot of people that are out there, they ask questions, right? And if you don't have an answer, they'll think, well, they win the argument, or you don't have proof and you just believe something on blind faith. So then, yeah.
I look at it this way, right? The narrative is that for 500 years or so, or 2,000 years, however long they want to quote it, that they've known that the Earth is a globe. Well, how were they able to convince people that it wasn't flat, that it was a globe? And obviously that would be through optics. So back in the day, they had a limited view of stuff, and they would see from their perspective a boat disappear into the horizon, and they would claim that obviously that would be the curvature of the Earth, and that's how they were able to change people's minds and beliefs from a flat Earth to a globe Earth. So it's a case of unraveling that perspective. So when we tackle perspective, well, when I tackle perspective, I have to look at it as if, how did they convince people? What is the reasons that the globe have for saying that a boat disappears and it's going over the curvature of the Earth? And quite often, in fact, if not 100% of times, it's when it either disappears due to a perspective, gets too small to be seen, or it goes into an inferior mirage. So those two things are what I've actually set about challenging. What is the inferior mirage and what is the horizon? So by tackling it head on, obviously you're going straight into the lion's den. You're tackling optics, which for the most part do show things disappearing. So it's accounting for what is the reason behind that boat disappearing. Why did the boat disappear? What was the reasons for it? Was it curvature of the Earth, or was it an atmospheric issue, or was it a limited viewing angle, or was it in, there's a whole different realm of reasons as to why things disappear. But essentially, nobody was tackling that particular question. And this year experiment down at the beach gave me the...
Whoa, what experiment?
All right, this year's observations down at the beach gave me the opportunity to address those issues and tackle the globe's claim. Now, the globe said that the inferior mirage was the curvature of the Earth. I showed that it wasn't the case. I showed that inferior mirage actually happens above the water. So that instantly removes their claim that the inferior mirage is the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, but how did you do that? Because this is, when it all boils down to this, it's a cause and effect. I'm sorry, I was talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was explaining.
Ranty. Can I
Systematic observation and logic and reason. That's what I use to put my whole channel together. Often,
Okay, thank you. Can I speak now?
Oh, sorry. Right. Okay. Fire away.
Yeah. Why does everyone drone on in these monologues? Make your friggin' point.
Do the same.
Support it, and then shut up.
What do you mean drone
You're
up?
the best at doing that.
God, man.
Well,
listen. Okay, let me boil this down. What you're offering, Ranty, is a cause and effect relationship. So we have this thing called the scientific method that adjudicates cause and effect relationships. That's my problem with it.
You think I'm doing this scientifically?
No, what I'm saying is your inquiry, you said that you debunked them by showing... Hold on, I'm not done yet. You know what? Just go on. I'm tired of getting friggin' interrupted every second.
Well, my inquiry is how the globe were able to convince people that the Earth was a ball, and it was obviously down to optics. So by debunking the optics, it takes a leg from underneath the globe. And, there might not be a scientific way to do that, but the sure as hell is a repeated observation and logic and reason to put enough holes in the globe argument and take the inferior mirage away from them, see things much further in the distance than we should do. Debunk looming, which is another thing that I've actually done. Debunking looming, which, I think it's gone slightly under the radar here. But yeah, so I don't feel that the work that I've done in the past year should be in any way questioned with somebody that just wants to think about things. Slick.
Well, see, the problem, Ranty, is that you're just making a declaration. You're saying I debunked. So you're
Yeah, well, I did.
declaring.
I did.
Are you going to let me finish?
Well, no, because I did.
Okay, but let me finish. Okay.
It's not a declaration. I did.
I know, I heard you. But I'm saying is you're making a statement that you debunked them. Now, here's my problem. Tim Osman can say the same thing. He can say, look at my photos with all the optics. I just debunked flat earth. Now, does it mean anything more when he says it, or does it mean more when you say it? What's the difference between you two's declarations?
Is this a serious question?
Yeah, I do.
I think so. I think so. Is what you're saying that it, like what QE just said about adjudicating? He's saying. I think what Slick is saying that is that your observations are not really. You're not solving the dispute on the matter.
I've never said I'm solving it. What I'm saying is that there is a whole bunch of lies, and every single person on this panel and the panel in the past has their own little input into the slow death of the globe. Mine is optics. Nathan's is the argument. Tony's is education, etc., etc., etc. QE's is his. You know, we all have our own way of individually stabbing the globe, and this just happens to be what I do.
And I understand that, but the problem is that guy that just answered for me. Do me a favor, don't do that because I don't need that. I can speak for myself. Now, like I said, here's my point that I'm asking, and answer me this. Tim Osman has a claim that his photos debunk flat Earth. What do you think about that?
I don't have enough information from Tim Osman's observation, his one solitary observation. That's all he ever punts out, one solitary observation of apparent curvature. I haven't got enough information from that. I don't have, I'm not in that location to actually go across and say this is the reason. All I will know is that it looks across a lake, then an area of land. What's on the land, I don't know. Is the land merging into the horizon in some way and creating this effect that mimics water or mimics the air above? We don't know because I haven't had the chance to go there and have a look. One thing I will say is that he only has one observation. I have 3 terabytes worth of data of the same stuff.
Okay, so what you're saying is because he has one observation and you have a whole lot.
I'm saying I don't have enough data. What part of Slick? I'm sure you just keep doing this to try and troll me. This is why I said you were trolling before. Because every time I answer something, you then say, I just want to ask this question. And it's the same damn question. I just
Can I make a comment?
I don't have enough data from his to know exactly what's going on with Tim.
And I wasn't trying to speak for you. I'm just trying to see what I'm trying to restate your point to make sure that we all understand everyone's point. I wasn't trying to speak for you.
Yes, but listen, don't restate my point. Ask me to restate it.
Okay, Paul, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think what we're getting into, and I think what Slick's trying, I'll speak for myself. What I think is happening here is which explanation has the best explanatory power behind it. I think Ranty's saying with his observations on the optics and all, the refraction and all that stuff has stronger explanatory power than saying it's just the curvature of the Earth. That would,
that sounds like wiki. That sounds like a wiki explanatory power. That sounds like globehead stuff. Listen, without hypotheses, explanations are just so stories.
Well, and I'm not debunking that. I'm not saying that myself.
So then everybody should just sit around experiencing shit, right? We shouldn't do anything. Should just all experience.
It's already over. It's already over. I have, like I said, you see the flat Earth. I don't know which debate this is, but you go to the show more, and you go down to the flat Earth proofs, and you look at those 5, and then you go home because it's over, right? That's what I mean.
Clearly, it's not because we're still in the.
Well, clearly it is because they're whistling past the graveyard. Just because people come back and argue it, and put their hands over their eyes and their fingers in their ears and say la 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 over again, that doesn't mean that I need to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on with the 5 proofs that I have. Right?
Sorry to interrupt you, John. We're joined by Luke. How you doing, Luke?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to join the conversation.
Oh, very welcome. Good to have you. Thanks for joining.
Right? It's not my responsibility just because they want to play the eyes over the hands over the eyes, fingers in the ears, la la la. That doesn't mean. What does that mean? Does that mean the arguments don't stand? Right? This is already over, folks. I'm telling you it is. This is just barely palpable background noise. You got people talking. It's like a social thing. I mean, am I wrong?
Well, yeah, you just declaring that it's over isn't actually
Oh,
declaring it's
no,
over.
I'm not doing that. I said, look at my 5 proofs. Do you want to go over them?
No, we've already had about 50 presentations of it, and you just said you don't want to go on about stuff. It's like we've heard these 50 times
Exactly.
now.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Randy.
So I'm not just saying it,
just
I'm
one
showing
thing.
it.
Ranty, I wanted to tell you, my mom came here and she's, old. And I've been telling her I'm a flat earther and she thinks I'm stupid. So, and somehow she brought it up again, tongue in cheek. And I was like, and somehow she started telling me that boats go over the curve. And the first thing I did is I pulled up your channel and showed her that great video you have with the dog. The dog goes behind the curve, and then you at the end you bump the saturation up to see the boat, the center line.
Who's running the
And I showed
vacuum
her
in
that.
the background?
I don't know what that is.
Sorry,
Come on.
There we go. Much better.
Sammy has a lot of background noise.
Sorry, I've just muted Anon. I didn't know which one of it was. So if you were just talking, was it you were talking, Anon? Was it?
Yeah, it was me.
My bad. I muted you. I just didn't know who was making background noise.
No worries. Yeah. So I just showed her that, and she got irritated and angry, but she couldn't say anything when I showed her this. And that's thanks to your video and your observations that you've made. Otherwise, this woman, the old woman who barely speaks English, from another country, somehow knew about the boats going over the curve. This axiom, this simulacra has been around all over the place, all over the countries, everywhere. They're like, oh, yeah, I see the boat going over the curve. And when Ranty comes with how many terabytes of data and crushes it, it's powerful. Yeah, it's not a scientific. He's not varying and manipulating boat sizes, whatever, but it's powerful because that's the very first thing that they are taught. And when you crush that, then it kind of, for some people, like my mom, pisses her off and she doesn't want to talk to me about it anymore. And she's like, nah. Or other person goes, okay, what the fuck? And I'm going to look at this. Sorry, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. That's all I'm after, really. I mean, it's all my channel's been about. And I'm doing it for the greater good. I'm doing it for the community. And yeah, I agree because my videos are awesome.
Hey, I need more vacuum, not cowbell. Give me more vacuum.
Could be someone's PC. Could just be their fan on their PC when they open their mic to talk.
Well, Ranty, this isn't a personal attack on you, so don't take it all personal, right? We're not trying to drag you down. We're just trying to put, we're just trying to whittle this down to something that we can deal with. And when it comes to the end of the day, right, they're just observations.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but also when you get somebody new that comes into the argument, the first thing, like the gentleman Anon that just came in and said, was that the first thing they go to is boats go over the horizon. So if you don't have anybody like myself putting videos out that when they search boats go over the horizon and my name pops up and they watch a video and suddenly they realize the boat doesn't go over the horizon, if you haven't got somebody doing that, that person just dismisses flat earth and moves on.
Well, okay, you've already done it though.
My situation on this. My point on that story, that was a very lovely story about his mother accepting your photographs of boats not going over the curve. But there's no real proof there in those photos that boats don't go over the curve because It's just an idea. It's just a declaration. So this guy's poor mother is using your photos as like evidence of something that's not
Video.
really.
Video. It wasn't just. It was a video.
Do you always just cut
No.
people off in the middle of their sentences?
Yeah, because
Yeah, when you say photo.
you're misrepresenting the entire video. You clearly haven't even watched it.
All right.
To
All right.
probably-
If he
and
said
say that I've
photo,
done no
it
work.
was a
It's
video.
like,
No
I've
big
just got
deal.
a video out
Let's
and
just move on.
and
Let him
filmed
finish his
right.
point.
It's not going over the curvature of the Earth. You obviously haven't seen the work that's gone into it. The repeated data, like you were saying, there was a video of a dog that appeared to be in an inferior mirage, but it clearly wasn't over the curvature of the Earth. It was on the beach and it was only a mile away. And I mean, come on, guys. I mean, are you trolling? Honestly.
Not trolling.
Don't forget
That's
the
not
compression. I mean, the Stena Line boat where you see the font and it's getting compressed. That is absolutely fantastic. When you're looking at it, and you tell people there is a compression effect that's happening right above the visible horizon, and they go, "What are you talking about?" And you show them a boat, the same boat, one in a clear image, one not, and you see that font getting crushed, and then you go, "What the."
Yep, I did the same
Thank
thing.
Thank you, Ranty. I love your stuff.
I showed people that same observation.
That's
like,
not Slick's point.
Is that science? Is that science or is that logical deduction?
That's not Slick's point. Let Slick state his point one more time.
All right, if I can do this correctly. Okay, see, that was a nice story about how the guy's mother saw your photo, or whatever you want to call it, and decided that now that boats don't go over the horizon because now she has her evidence. But does she really have evidence? Because you said yourself, this is nothing but an observation. It doesn't prove anything. So here's this guy's poor mother thinking that she's got proof of something when she doesn't have proof of anything at all.
First of all, she was actually upset and mad, and her cognitive dissonance didn't allow her to finish the video. She just got pissed off. So that's what she did, because she's not capable of going, wow, this is crazy. You might be right. That's not her. She is not able to do that. A lot of people are, like myself and other people. So it's like, you're not going to catch everybody. A lot of people will never change their mind. Ever. Doesn't matter what you show them. Even Jesus falling down with a carpet.
Okay, well, let me
I
ask
was
you this.
talking.
Yeah, I know, but
annoying.
you weren't dealing with Slick's argument. You were
You're
going on
so
about
annoying.
some side
John,
issue.
I got it. Go ahead. Let him go ahead.
Nothing. I'm done. I'm just saying some people will never change their mind, and that's the videos are not for them. The videos for people who are able to change their mind and look at things critically. Look at things critically. That's it.
Here's my question for you. Did Ranty's, whatever that is, photos or whatever, convince you?
I was convinced that there is a compression effect that happens at the horizon. Without the Stena line, yeah.
That's not
what do you mean?
question.
That's not what I asked. Yes, that's exactly what you asked.
My question is, let me ask it again. Did Ranty's photos convince you of a flat Earth?
That's not what you asked the first time.
I'm asking it now.
Ranty,
I'm rephrasing it. I'm rephrasing
No, I came across the Ranty after I was pretty much on board with the flat Earth. So
okay, so his
but
photos
gave me additional weapons and arguments.
So his photos didn't add to it because you were already there. Am I correct?
It added to it. Added to it heavily.
Can you let the guy answer, Randy? Or do you have to speak for him?
Slick, he literally answered 30 seconds.
I know, but I can't hear him because you're talking. You said that you didn't. Listen, Ranty.
Let me remediate. Let me mediate here.
You said that you didn't want to talk about it anymore, so why don't you just hold off a second and let me talk to this guy by myself, if you don't mind.
I got him, Ranty. Go ahead. Yes, I was already on board. It's been like I came across Ranty 2 or 3 years after I came, I found out about this whole thing. So, it didn't really. I was already convinced from a plethora of other nonsense that I had to swallow since I was a kid. So, but it was good enough where that was the very first thing that I pulled up with my mom is Ranty's work. I'm not gonna pull up 6 hours of Eric Dubé. So Ranty's video was very concise, on point, beautifully done, and that was perfect. It was like a little nugget that I could feed her and have her explode in front of me.
Okay, so what were you feeding her? In other words, were you feeding her any real proof of evidence, or were you just feeding her an idea?
I was feeding her the idea that your notion that boats go over the horizon bottom up is nonsense. It's something a guy, you know, from the 1400s would have swallowed, but today with P1000s and infrared, you know, filters and whatnot, and all the, you know, things that we have, no, that should not fly. If those guys had that, they wouldn't have bought this nonsense about boats going over the curve. You hear that from everybody.
It's just
boats
that
go
you're
over the curve and
confusing
bottom
me.
up.
You're just confusing me because
Why?
in one
I think you're just confused.
in one instance you're saying one thing, in another instance you're saying something else. Now, does Ranty's picture prove anything? Yes or no?
Ranty's picture proves that there is some sort of a compression going on with when you're looking at the font.
And what does that mean?
And you don't know what I'm talking about. That's it, because you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That's the problem. Go watch his video and then you realize what the hell I'm talking about.
I'm trying to get clarity.
No. You ask a question, he answers, then you ask another question. You never respond to it. You just a question and another question and then another
It's like
question.
Larry King.
He's no. He's not answering Slick's question. He's not answering Slick's question. Ask the question again,
Slick wants
one more
him
time.
to say something that he isn't going to say. He's trying to corner him, and he's not going down that route. He's not playing games.
Let him say it, Randy.
Playing games. Slick is playing games.
Oh,
Slick is
God. Appeal to motive intent, fallacy.
Playing games here.
Slick keeps asking the same question because he wants his answer, not
no, because you won't answer it.
Okay, why don't you ask Slick's question and see if I answer it for you? What was the question? Did Ranty
what is it proving?
Flat Earth for me? It proves that there is a compression, and it proves things don't go over the curve. Simple as that.
How does
and
it
I think
prove?
If you don't get that, I'm sorry.
Say nothing.
Yeah, my question
if
was.
you don't get that, I'm sorry, dude.
Okay, I know, but my question to that is, how does it prove it? Because whenever you prove something, that means that you.
Let me
hold
explain.
on, now you're talking over me. You're talking
how does
over
it prove
me.
it?
Hold on.
I heard you.
Hold on. Now, my question is, how does that prove anything? Because usually when you go to prove things, you perform the scientific method. You can't prove something with a declaration about compression.
Okay, here's, you know, you're looking at a boat, okay, a ship, and it says on the side of it, Stenner line or Stena line with font, okay? And then the boat goes away and you zoom in and you're looking at the font and it looks like it's squished. So if you don't get that, then you just might be retarded.
So we got, don't call him retarded, so we got proof of squishing.
He never said he was retarded. He said he might be retarded.
Yeah, we know what he said.
Right,
So we got
cut the
proof
crap.
of
Come on,
squishing.
come on. Cut the crap. Let's keep on track.
Yeah.
So
what,
hold on.
what do you think
hold
happened?
On, hold
so
on.
you have
Let's just
option
hold on,
where...
hold on. So we've got writing that gets visually compressed. Right. Let's
Maybe
go from
you
there.
can help, Nathan. Why do you think a visually compressed boat at the hull might, in certain circumstances with a 2 or 3 inch wave, suddenly at some point appear to be going over the curve, Nathan? Maybe you could answer that.
I don't think it was, but that's not the question. The question you're being asked, Ranty, and I've got no horse in either race, is what does it prove and how does it prove it?
Who's saying it's proving anything? Who is saying that it's proving anything?
The guy that I was just talking to.
My understanding of this conversation.
Observations.
Hold on, Ranty. My understanding of the conversation thus far is that is it 10th Man or Sammy? I forget. Is it 10th Man?
Yes.
No, it's
10th
an
Man.
on.
10th Man is. Sorry, did you say it was Sammy?
No.
10th Man. We're
I
saying
don't
that
know.
it's a non. I got there in the end. So non is saying that he's presented some information to an individual, and that individual has taken what they have seen as proof the Earth is not curving, and that's where we're at. And basically, Slick is saying, how does it prove it? It's as simple as that.
No,
Am I
Nathan,
wrong?
that's not what happened. She didn't. It's not like she agreed. It's what I'm saying is it crushed her previous notion that just because something disappears from the bottom up, that means it went behind a curve. That's all it did. Even if it didn't actually change her mind, but it just put a little seed in there, just a tiny seed, that next time when she opens her mouth, she never talks about flat earth to anybody, but I'm not talking about her, anybody else, when they open their mouth to say boats go over, they might think of Ranty's image. That's it. And the compression that happens, and you see the font, you have two options. Option one, they hired a bunch of painters who went out there and repainted the stena line, and they didn't use a font that was squished, or there is a compression happening and the font appears squished. Those are the two options. And a third one, I don't know. I'm sure there's a couple more where it's a digitized, it's a big old LCD screen and it changes.
Well, that's
so
ridiculous.
These are your three options.
So you got proof of squishing, like I said before.
Yeah, I see squishing. I see squishing
Okay.
at the horizon. There
Okay, thank you.
But hold on. So is your demeaning of that to say that seeing something squish isn't a reasonable logical deduction to say that it's not going over a curve?
It depends.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, John.
Yeah, he's got proof of squishing. I don't see any other connections or ramifications downstream of that, unless he can tell me.
So when they show you a wind turbine and it looks like the bottom of it is squished, then I go and they claim that the turbine is behind the Earth curve, and then I show them a stena line squished. There you go.
I don't care about their claim. I don't care what the Baltards are saying.
That's fine.
I'm saying,
yeah, but
what
99% of people do care, QE, and that's why this is why a tackling optics.
That's why you're letting
your
tail wag the dog
of waking people up. It is, whether you like it or not. It's
not whether I like it or not. I'm not into liking or agreeing and disagreeing. You're letting the tail wag the dog. I could care less what they claim.
Well,
right?
I know you couldn't.
I want to know what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. Well, they'll get to you when they've first seen my work. See my work, they get involved in flat Earth. Then they find you, who finishes them off.
Oh, you're saying that you're the gateway drug to me.
Well, don't you think? Well, hang on, wait a minute. Essentially, my work's better than yours. no, I'm joking. But yeah, I mean,
thanks, Randy. Yeah, you're not pretentious in the least.
Optics is what's going to draw them in, Jimmy. It is. You see, they search for. Somebody says to them, the boat goes over the horizon. They go check it out. They see that it doesn't. They start looking at flat Earth. They find the way to the debates. They find the way to the 5 questions, the 5 housekeeping questions. Game over. It's a process.
The only thing that I hear is Anon using your observations to try to put a different idea in somebody's head. I don't think he was trying to prove absolutely with scientific evidence that, votes don't go over the curve to whoever it was, his mom or whoever it was he was talking about. It's just a useful tool to put an idea in somebody's head.
But
to give them a different option to think about. Now, it kind of just seems like Slick just wants to say, "Well, what are you doing that for?" I mean, that's what I've been listening to the past, hours. Like it just seems like, what are you taking pictures for? That's great. Just experience it. It's nice. And it's like that's not going to help somebody who has no idea about what's going on.
Can I respond to that? Now, old people do the same thing. They do things to put ideas in people's head. That's their whole operation. The whole reason why we have a heliocentric accepted model by almost all the population, because they think it's okay to put ideas in people's heads.
So then you're supposed to do nothing then?
That doesn't mean put ideas in people. So what you're telling me is this. You have two options. Hold on. Let me answer them. Here's what you're telling me. One option is do nothing. Other option, put ideas in people's heads. So what you're telling me, the logical thing to do is put ideas in people's heads.
I wouldn't say he's putting ideas.
Hold on, I'm not finished. Now, so what I'm asking, if you have a choice of do nothing or put logical ideas in people's heads, what is the best way to go? Do nothing or put ideas in people's
False
heads
dichotomy. He's
that has
presenting
no.
evidence. He's not putting ideas in people's heads. He's giving
I
evidence.
didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you that. Here's my question. I'm gonna say it one more time. Listen carefully. If you've got two choices, one is to do nothing, and the other choice is to put ideas in people's heads. Which one do you choose?
Well, I would say it's a
I
false
guess I'll do
dichotomy.
nothing and just sit in my chair and experience flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
No further questions.
Yeah, good. Are you going to piss off now?
Can I make a comment?
Hey, no need.
What? For me not to make a comment?
No, Ranty, tell him to piss off.
Sorry, this has to be the worst show ever.
What are you
I
saying?
love it. It's
I think
awesome.
it's a good show.
Let me make a comment.
Hello?
I remember John when he did the presentation on you either got nature or creator, right? That's only two options you got. I think in a way, what Ranty's trying to do is saying you've either got some other optic effect causing this, or you've got curvature, and then we got to try to figure out which of those two it is. I think
That's
the
what I
way
said. It boils down to a
most-
cause and effect relationship, right?
Right. So how do you go
Right,
about
but
that?
you
Is a good
can't.
question.
Yeah, you can't adjudicate it, right? Because it's impossible to adjudicate. You don't have a viable independent variable. Listen, I don't think Slick is trying to dog Ranty out. I know I'm not. Right. I think we're getting off the reservation here into little personal digs and stuff. That's not what's going on here. We're just trying to work it out. Right. This is just based on observations. Now, they have their place. I'm not saying that they don't. However, they can only give you so much. And that's it.
Nobody's
Any
claimed
problem
anything
with
other than
Anything else? Exactly. Yes. Only so much.
Yeah, but doesn't the little bit they give you add to the conversation?
Sure.
It gives you your experience, and that's all you have.
Would you guys like to hear a story?
Story? Why not?
Yeah, a story. How
Is
we
it
all
short?
got here.
Is it a short
No,
story?
Oh, come on, John. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Luke.
it's short.
Go ahead, Luke.
Short. You guys might find it interesting. There was an experiment done in 1964, a social experiment, to see if the public would accept an idea presented without any evidence. And I find it funny that it was done in 1964. And what does everybody think if I say to you the Corvair, the Chevy Corvair? What's your immediate thought?
Blowing up.
This is too deep for me.
No, it's not.
Blowing up.
Right. It's a crappy car. And in 1964, the government did an experiment and they said, let's tell the public this car is complete crap with no evidence. And Popular Mechanics released that article. And the public bought it hook, line, and sinker without any evidence. So it's easy for us to accept ideas, which is why we all were, believing in one thing, and now we're questioning that. And it's just human nature, right? And, we can question things, and we don't have to have definitive proofs all the time, but we can accept their observations and question things. And I think that's what we're doing a good job at.
This is 10th Man.
How do you change an idea
hold on a second, sorry.
once a false idea is spread?
Sorry,
No, very good. Yeah, 10th man.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you have something to add, 10th man? I heard you pipe up, but you're a bit quiet.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Listener to your show, long time, first time on Hangouts. Good to be here. For my comment, when was the scientific method first established properly? What year was that?
Didn't they start developing it during like the Enlightenment?
Doesn't have an approximation.
Well, people talked about it kind of like we're talking about it, right?
No, I'm talking the way that John explains independent, dependent, all the methods. When was that first introduced by science?
Good question.
Well,
John?
it's a confusing
I'd like to
question.
know.
I'm sorry, I just got back. What was the question?
When was science first introduced, i.e. the scientific method based on independent and dependent variables in the method that we describe here? When was that first established?
If I was to make a guess, somewhere around the mid 1500s.
Very good.
There wasn't
So
just
my
one.
question.
I wasn't
so my
done yet. Around 1500s, and it wasn't just one person. Sir Francis Bacon was a big part of it, but there were a lot of other people. And the final scientific method, I'd have to search for it. What's the relevance of the question?
Thank you, John. I appreciate that date. My question is based on that. We know that people looked at boats disappearing and they called that science. But if the scientific method was there, they could have tested it. You can't. They couldn't test it through the scientific method, so they would be like saying, "Okay, we have to find a way."
Well,
Observations.
no, that's not quite
Hang
correct.
on. No. You're right. You're right. But let me just finish. By observations, we were about boats disappearing. But today, by observations with telescopes, we show that lie to be a lie. So one observation, and what I love about this channel is that even we debate our own belief systems and try to keep it to the scientific method. So my point is, if they had done that from the beginning, we would not be talking about.
Yeah, I agree. So if we're on a new page of history, to coin a phrase, then would we want to fall victim to the same trap so that 500 years from now we say, oh, well, we wouldn't be living in this parallel flat universe dimension if it wasn't for the fact that they just ignored the scientific method and its empirical nature back in 2020 when they finally realised they'd been lied to about living on a spinning sphere. But they just went forth and used the magic word of science to assert their beliefs based on what they saw, and they didn't validate any of it empirically. So here's the new nonsense 500 years later. Appeal to future fallacy.
So, yeah, that was a beautiful summary of what I'm trying to say. So when John is pushing in a good way a true view of science, he's not wrong. And when Ranty and others are saying, well, I could use observation with my video to disprove their boats disappearing, he's not wrong.
No, if you can demonstrate the observably obvious, which is to say that they don't go over a curve, and Ranty does demonstrate that, so he can assert that. It's not even a logical deduction with a lot of Ranty's observations. It is just literally that is what's happening. What you can see, it's literally say what you see, as opposed to conjuring a phenomena from what you see and then saying that it needs scientific inquiry to explain why you see what you see, which is what our opponents would do. So in many instances, you don't even have to say anything. Ranty puts up one of his observations and go, there you go. That's Barrow and Finesse at 18 miles. And I keep saying this all the time. It literally requires no explanation. So I think this is where Slick's, maybe I'm off on a tangent on Slick's point, but maybe that's his point, which is to say that many of the things that are just presented, and that's the way that Slick presents it or phrases it, it's observably obvious. In other words, you don't have to give an explanation for looking at Barrow and Finesse, Ranty, but you can definitely show it, and it's glorious. But does it need anything saying about it? Does it need to be asserted that you have proven it's not a curve in the way? Well, not necessarily. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Sly, I think that's your point.
Oh, you mean me?
You said Sly. Sorry, no, not you.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
you called him Sly.
Man.
Did I call him Sly?
Yeah, you called him Sly.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, yeah, you did. Sly. My bad. Slick.
No, that's okay.
So I'm standing with a glober, and I ask him, do you feel the earth is spinning? He says, no. And then I say, well, why do you believe it? What science told me. This empirical science comes in and we destroy them. Because as earth personalist and not moving. So even the people who were standing next to who believe like we did, because we all believed in the globe at one time to a certain degree, have to admit they don't feel the Earth's spinning under them, but they want to trust the people in the lab coats who have not used this with ships disappearing or almost anything, because they, like Lawrence Krauss says in the video, you know, it's empirical, it's settled, we don't need to talk about it. No, you've lied from the beginning.
Well, he's not one in a lab coat, right? These we're talking about pseudoscience. So number one, your friend said science says it. Well, science doesn't say anything. It doesn't have lips, vocal cords, aerobic respiration. So that's a reification fallacy.
But stop right there, John. Sorry, got to interrupt you. Yes, it is a reification fallacy. You're absolutely valid. I'm not disagreeing with you. But that's the essence of the problem. You stand next to your friend. You say, do you feel like we're spinning? No. Well, why would you believe such a thing then? Science says so. That's the problem. And you know, you're new into this debate, and you've verbalized so beautifully what the problem is. Sorry, John, carry on. My bad.
No, I agree with your statement, but it's not science says. Number one, it's a reification fallacy. Number two, it's pseudoscience says. See, say it
precisely. That's
right.
Why when he says spinning, he labels his science pseudoscience immediately. Because real science wouldn't say that.
Well, so it's hard to get out of the habit. Science doesn't say anything, it's a method. I'm not disagreeing with your sentiment, though. Your sentiment's beautiful. It's absolutely correct. What has been called science is actually pseudoscience. So when Neil deGrasse Tyson says science is right whether you like it or not, I know that's paraphrasing, but that's the essence of what he's communicating. And he's correct. You have an empirical method of science to establish the cause of an effect through systematic, hypothesis-based experimentation. That's not what he's got, though. He's got a telescope. But he'll declare science is right to leave you, the audience, under the impression that what he declares is empirical. So when next man is asked, why do you think you're spinning? Because science says so. Well, what does that mean? It means an empirical method of proving cause and effect says that we're on a spinning ball. It's farcical.
Yeah. It's like one of the side chats I had with one of the trolls kept going and going. I shared this with Anand when we were off call earlier. I said, I don't believe the atmosphere is like Velcro. Well, back and forth on the word Velcro. He dared me to find one glober who used the word Velcro. So I typed in Google search, atmosphere sticks to stickiness, attach. And I said, well, there you go. Just like Velcro, it sticks, it attaches. Then he went on and on because he couldn't find one glober who used the word Velcro. And yet everyone knows Velcro attaches. So I said, look, I've been researching this for 2 years. I've talked to globers, and they've even agreed that it's just like Velcro sticking to the earth. Because he was stuck on the word. So when I say the people who are deceived by the word science, obviously I mean pseudoscience, but they don't think of it that way. Yet your eyes have to wake up to realize it never went through the empirical method. So just about everything is pseudoscience these days. Then they call science because some things you can't manipulate the independent variable.
Right, and then what happens is the true science gets pigeonholed with the pseudosciences, and then the whole thing is thrown out. Right?
Exactly.
That's the problem.
But
because that's the problem. There are true
our
sciences out there that people are trying to say, well, since paleontology, archaeology, anthropology, geology, evolutionary biology, yeah, I'm still laughing, theoretical physics, astrophysics, astronomy, and cosmology, when they say something, it's pseudoscience, actually, but the true sciences get piled in and pigeonholed and painted with the brush of pseudoscience, and then it's all over, right? We can't trust any of them.
Well, this is why your experiment in science needs to be, because it limits the actual empirical method to what can be true. Everything else has to be left to observation and declaration. So I love Ranty's videos and pictures like that, because I'll say, look, my observation beats your observation. They didn't have telescopes back then. So 3 mile or 4 mile saw this. But today we can see much further. In fact, look, there's ships seeing lighthouses 100 miles off even. You're not supposed to see that. That's observation. I could kill them with their own method. Pseudoscience could kill pseudoscience.
Can you give us an example of true science, like something that you think is true science, John?
True science. Have you seen my science presentations?
I mean, an actual like law or experiment that you think is valid.
Laws, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You need to go and watch the science presentation. It's ball busters.
Let me, if I may. So, the point of science is a method to inquire about the cause of a phenomena that you observe in the natural world. Now, phenomena happen all the time, and there's a way of inquiring what causes said phenomena. And that's basically it. That's what it's for. Now, It's been hijacked because the end result is empirical. The way it's formulated, and just in case this comes up in the comments, it has its roots in philosophy. Does that alter the empirical nature of the method devised by philosophical means? Absolutely not. It's still an empirical method. Doesn't matter how it's been devised, the empirical nature of the end result is all that matters. And when you have something with such strong words that can be attributed to it, empirical being one of them, then it's going to be susceptible to hijacking by pretender clowns, snake oil salesmen, pseudo-scientists will say that they have science. Well, because it means that their assertions have much, much greater weight, as we discussed with Arwin on the last show. You know, Arwin wanted to argue for empirical deduction. And I'm like, no, it's not empirical.
Right, he was asking for an example, right? I went over this, all the examples in the last science presentation. I would suggest watching that science presentation a few times.
Which one was that?
Could you do like a summary?
It's Ballbusters 3, I believe.
Well, what do you mean a summary? It's the method. Do you want an example of the scientific method or something going through the scientific method?
I'm talking about a consequence of using the method.
Yeah, well, we can use the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. It's a cause and effect.
Don't use boiling water, just so that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Just keep it simple.
I think he's asking, if I may. I think the manipulation part. What not be manipulated? Because if it can't be, then it can't fall in the category.
I'm sorry, whoever's talking right now, you're cutting out on me. I'm getting cut. I can't understand what you're saying.
I apologize. I'm on property. He's that relation part of the true science
Nathan,
method.
can you translate that? Because I can't hear him.
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit too much. It's getting progressively worse. So at the start, it was only about 10%. Now it's at about 50%. So we can hardly hear what you're saying, unfortunately, 10th man.
Roger that. Can you hear me now?
That's a bit better, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's asking what I, for a long time, was searching for was the manipulation part of true science method, which is you have to be able to manipulate. So what be manipulated that can be tested through the. So the water boiling is a good one, but the earth turning can't. So that's how you know if you could even test it, right?
I understand your question now. So who was it that asked the question originally?
I did, Sammy.
Sammy. So correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying what is it that makes it empirical, and what would be the nature of the method that makes it?
Or not really what makes it empirical, but like an example of like an independent variable and a dependent variable.
Fine. Yeah. Do you want me to do it, John, or do you want to do it with boiling water?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you stumble across a hot spring with boiling water in it. That is your natural phenomena that you're going to observe. So the question being asked is, what causes that to happen? So in order to establish what causes it to happen in the method, you would then formulate a hypothesis. So the hypothesis would have essentially only two ingredients, but the formulation I'll go into a little bit more. So the two ingredients would be your independent variable, which would be the thing that you presume at this stage causes that effect. So the effect being the dependent variable. So your phenomena that you have observed, so you stumble across, your dependent variable, boiling water. Yeah, and all you're going to do is just guess what causes it to happen. It's as simple as that. The hypothesis stage is to have a mirror image, if you will, of what you predict in the contrapositive. Is that the right word? In other words, you've got the opposite of your prediction. So let's say the example I gave the other day to make the null make sense was to say, if you have acid, water will boil. In other words, an incorrect prediction. But in your null, the other part of the hypothesis, it would say, if you have acid, water will not boil. In other words, one or other of the two sides will get confirmed, either your null, zero difference result, or your prediction, your alternative hypothesis. So upon adding acid to water and not seeing it boil, you confirm your null. Yep. So it's validation of your hypothesis, in this case, the zero difference result, not a correct prediction. In essence, a failure to predict the cause of the effect. So then you go forward and formulate a new hypothesis. So at this stage, you have an invalid hypothesis, i.e. you have confirmed the null. Then you decide to try heat. That becomes your independent variable, one singular sole cause of the effect. You vary the heat applied to the water and see the dependent variable occur. So you vary the independent variable of heat and see the dependent variable of boiling, thus confirming the alternative hypothesis and invalidating the null, hence the empirical nature. Now the point to get there is that by having something to physically, as a researcher, you vary and manipulate the heat applied to the water. So I'm going to try and answer your question with a question to you. If you were to attempt to validate the cause of a boat going over the horizon, what would you suggest could be varied and manipulated to cause that effect?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. But you said that you varied the heat, so could you argue that you were the cause of the boiling?
No. So that's why in the example I said you originally stumble across a hot boiling spring. So you can't tell me that you will cause that without being there prior to it happening. So you arrived, it was already boiling. You're just trying to find out why that natural phenomenon is occurring. So no, you as the researcher are going to vary and manipulate your presumed cause of that effect, and in so doing establish if it does or does not cause the effect. The point isn't necessarily to shed more light on the method itself, it's more to point out the independent variable part, which is to say the part which you as a researcher will vary. Now, just to make it a bit more dumbed down, if you are to assert that it's not a phenomena, but a boat going over the horizon, if you're trying to establish that the cause is Earth being curved or Earth being flat, if you're trying to prove the opposite of that, if that's the case, you cannot vary the flatness of Earth in that scenario. Same applies to Earth curve. How can you possibly vary and manipulate Earth curvature to prove it's the cause of the effect? And the answer is simple: you can't. It sits outside of science.
I see, but could you, like, people say they measure it though.
But that's mathematics.
So instead of proving it, you'd just be demonstrating it, right? If you measured it.
Sure, if there's a curve, it should be capable of measurement. I would agree. Has anybody, as the housekeeping question's not been answered in the affirmative yet, has anybody got any signs of Earth curvature?
Well, that's what people say. They say they do.
So you should be able to measure it then. No science required.
Well, then you go back to Eratosthenes and all that.
All right.
Well,
Yeah.
But they did.
we will get definitely into the begging the question part of it on the after show, but with that, unfortunately, for anybody watching in the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream, this is where I will bid you farewell and say a huge, massive, enormous thank you for tuning in, smashing the super chat, liking, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. If you need something to keep you occupied after the live show has ended, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Community Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Also, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this live debate possible. Around 5 p.m. UK time, the pre and after show for number 769 will go out. So yes, about half an hour from now. So check that out on my second channel, Nathan Oakley. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. As I say, be sure to stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley, as there will be an after show to follow.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!